Good evening, and welcome to our show, Brookfield Public Advocate. I'm your host, Bruce Senick. As we begin a new year, and for those who may be new to our show, I'd like to take a moment to tell our viewers the mission of the show. We examine issues of importance to Brookfield's residents and the surrounding communities, which sometimes are underreported. We will provide a venue to those who feel unrepresented. We provide a point-counterpoint. Many politicos and commission board members have a public persona at their meetings. This venue, this show, can offer an opportunity to those with a differing opinion on crucial matters. And we will also do common interest stories. And tonight's topic is not only an interest story, but a story about a Good Samaritan service right here in Brookfield. Tonight, we're privileged to have a guest who was recently named Person of the Year for 2011 by the Housatonic Times. You've read about him, you've heard about him, you've seen him about Brookfield, especially every fall after the trees have dropped all their leaves for the annual rake and bake. We can put up some slides. Our guest was raised in New Rochelle and served in the U.S. Navy and later earned a degree in marketing from Pace University in Westchester County. He is married with 3 daughters and retired after a 38-year career with Nestle USA, his last position being Director of Purchasing. A longtime member of St. Joseph's Church right here in Brookfield, it's amazing, at least to me, how in just the span of 14 years, he's built a humanitarian juggernaut to help those in need in Brookfield and its surrounding communities. If you haven't figured out by now, unless you peeked and saw the opening credits, Brookfield Public Advocate is honored to have Peter Brady as our guest. Peter, thank you for coming and welcome to the show.
Great to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Peter, I have a lot of questions and topics that I'd like to cover with you, and so much so that if we don't wrap up in time, I'm hoping that I'd like to ask you back for another show.
Terrific.
But let's get started. Peter, if you could first tell our audience how and when the original idea for the Handyman came to you.
That's a tongue twister. I know.
Right,
It's
right.
tongue twister.
Say that 3 times fast.
It really developed before I retired, about 2 years before I retired. I said, you know, it's time for me to give back to the Lord all He's given me, which was a nice family, a nice place to live, and you know, I guess I'm financially okay. So I started to do small jobs around St. Joseph's Catholic Church. But I said, let's expand this thing. Let's do something outside the parish and service about 25 clients, which would be senior citizens, handicapped, people just less fortunate, unemployed. And I'd probably have 25 to 50 volunteers. And we got a call from St. Joseph's asking us to rake 2 lawns in the Brookfield area. One lady was 95 years old and one was 89. And so I had myself and 4 of my family members, my 3 daughters and my wife, and then 5 kids from Brookfield High School. We went out and raked the leaves and had a great time, went back for pizza and said, this is fun. Let's do this again next year. And that program, you know, Rake and Bake, started to explode. So that's really what happened. But really, on the handy-dandy business, I went to my pastor and I said, you know, I'd like to be a handyman for parishioners, single moms, whatever. And he said to me, great, but what makes you think you're a handyman? Well, I'm really not a handyman. But what I am is a good organizer. And I've got 3 characteristics for my corporate life: organization, communication, and motivation. So if I can communicate well with people, organize them when they get there, and motivate them to do something for nothing, then I think this will work. He said, go for it. That's basically how it all started.
That's terrific. How did you organize in the beginning, and what were some obstacles that you might have had to deal with?
Well, we organized using the email system, and I came from the corporate world where I had a secretary every day, so I never even saw a computer. So I had to learn that. So I decided to learn that, but I asked a lot of parishioners around if they had an email system and they could take messages from me, and I said, let's start building it from the church and we'll mushroom out if it's going to be. So I communicated with a lot of people, maybe 50 people, and I thought that was terrific. And so that started to build. So it's a communication network that I started to develop over the short period of time at the church, and then it started to move out. The obstacles were really not too many, but one, excuse me, one was that we were going to work for someone and we were going to pay for the materials. So we had to raise some funds. So we did that, but getting fundraising going was difficult because I wasn't a nonprofit and people didn't know me. I was new in the community. I came here in 1994, and so being new, I said, well, this may not be something I can do. So the church helped me out a little bit financially. So I took a lot of funds out of my own retirement fund and said, you know, if I'm going to do this, I got to become a nonprofit, and we'll address that in a moment. But yeah, that was basically how we started.
And could you also tell our viewers about maybe your first 2 or 3 missions?
Yeah, I guess one of my first missions was to, I got a call from a person up in Southbury, Connecticut, which is about 40 minutes away. And you know, I didn't really know about Southbury much, and that was far away from me then. So I said, look, I told the woman on the phone, I said, I really can't do this because it's just too far away and I don't know my way up there. We didn't have GPS in those days. So consequently, through the night, as I said, we're spiritually based out of St. Joseph's. I had a calling to call that woman back. So I did that. I said, you know, I'm going to be up in that area. I'll come in and say hello to you. What do you have? What's your problem? She said, electrical problem. So I said, okay, fine. Now, I'm not an electrician, not a license, and I can put a plug in basically. But something told me that I had to be up there. So I went up there, and this woman was probably in her early 90s, lived alone, had 3 Great Dane dogs greeting me at the door, so that was kind of interesting. So I got in there, and I sat down, and I said, okay, what seems to be your problem? My problem is the neighbors really don't like me. They don't know me. They don't help me. And I've got a problem with electricity. What's that? Well, the lights in my ceiling in the kitchen here haven't worked for 6 months. So she's been in the dark. So I said, oh, I can handle that. I can change the bulbs. She's had the bulbs. So she said, the real reason I have you here is that I have no one to talk to. And I saw your posting in the newspaper that you would do anything for anyone back in 2002. Well, it was actually earlier than that. So I thought I could trust you to come in my house. So we sat there for 4 hours just talking about different things. Not her family, just about living. So I said to myself, this was a good call. I wasn't going to go on that call. The second story I can share with you is, I have 2 others. The second story I'm going to share with you is, I got a call on a Saturday from a person who was a single person and a senior, and she lived in an apartment, low-income apartment in Danbury, looking for food, needed to go shopping. Could I take her? I said, sure, I'll do it on Monday. I'll pick you up at 10 o'clock. She gave me her address. The second person called me Sunday. Same question, a man. So I said, sure, I'll pick you up on Monday. What's your address? It was the same address in this building.
Really?
I said, great, look for this person, and I'll pick you both up in front of the building. I got there, we got in the car, they got in the car. So I asked them several questions as we went over to ShopRite in Brookfield about their background and how they got in the situation. They told me they didn't know each other. They saw each other in the halls but never met personally. We shopped and we came out and we took them back to their place, and it was a week before Thanksgiving. They got a turkey, a free turkey from the manager there, and the other fellow got a ham. And so about a week later, I guess they had turkey dinner at his place or her place. 6 months later, I get a call from them. We're getting married.
No kidding.
We're getting married. I said, you've got to be kidding me. I said, oh, great, let me come over and meet you. So I went over. I didn't really know them. So I went over and met them and took all the detail. I said, where are you getting married? I'm getting married in Danbury at the gazebo over in Terrywile. I said, great. I said, actually, they're going to go to a lawyer to get married. So let's have it in Terrywile. Great. So I said, what about a reception? Well, we're going to go to a diner with my 3 members of my wife's family, my future wife's family. I said, let's have a reception. So we had a reception that someone gave us their house in Bridgewater, and we had a terrific reception. Our board members came. But at the wedding, we had about 80 people there, none of whom the couple knew. They were all from HTHM, all of our followers who wanted to be there. They took pictures. They gave him gifts. We had some funds left over from all the donations. And after the reception, someone came up and gave them a honeymoon for 4 days in Vermont, which is where they wanted to go, in a hotel, I guess it was the Marriott or whatever. And we ended up having enough $2,000 to give them a check to get on their way.
Unbelievable.
I mean,
It is unbelievable.
it's incredible. The third and final fun story I have just happened last Wednesday. Tuesday night, I got a call from a woman who said, this gal that I know through someone else is a single mom with one child. The child is 5.5 years old, and she's on hard times. She had all kinds of illnesses, and could I help her? She was homeless. Now she found a place. She has absolutely no furniture. So I said, great, have her call me because I don't like to force myself on anyone. So she called me the next day and she told me a little bit about it. I said, time out. Send me an email, tell me about your stories, because I can't write all this down. I can't remember anything. I'm 70 years old. You don't remember too much at 70 years old. So anyway, she wrote it down and I said, I can help you. So I went over to see her after I got the note to make sure everything was legit, because sometimes people take advantage of situations. Right. And everything was legit. Met her daughter, terrific young lady. And that was Wednesday. And Wednesday night, Thursday, I guess it was Thursday morning, Wednesday night I issued an email to my subscribers, and we have 2,100 people on our email list, which is farther greater than we had 50 several years ago. And I told them exactly what we needed, because I went through the whole apartment. Each piece of furniture, I wanted new if I could get it, but I'll take good used. But the TV, they never had a TV before. And on Sunday, a couple of days ago, we delivered everything to the house at 10 a.m. in the morning on Sunday. Bitter cold, wind blowing like crazy. We had eight volunteers. We furnished the whole place, and the gal was away. She was working that day, Sunday. She works down in Stanford, above all things. She came back. She just collapsed. She just couldn't believe it. So of course I met her yesterday, and she was just delighted at everything. And we're going to give her a personal makeover. We're going to fix her car, and she's going to be on her way. So. Those are three great stories, but I have a ton more. We don't have enough time.
Well, that's why we need to have you back for another show.
Hopefully I didn't take up too much time with that.
No. Now, I had asked was going to ask if there was one or two missions that were really special or moving, but I think we've already heard them.
Yes,
unless you have another.
Oh, one. No. That's good.
Okay. Now, I understand for the viewers, I understand that you've set this ministry up as a 501c3 organization. Can you please explain to the folks
Sure.
what that is and its benefits?
Sure. After 3 years of financing out of my own pocket and some help from the church, I decided if I'm going to keep this thing going, I've got to get some more funding. So I talked to a local lawyer who's a parishioner of ours, and I said, would you do this gratis? Set me up with a 501c3 nonprofit. I went to a CPA, which those two people you kind of need to do this.
Right.
And I said, same thing, and he said, no problem. And I went to a bookkeeper. Actually, I didn't go to the bookkeeper, yes, but anyway, then I had those two people. They did all the paperwork, which is a tremendous job. I couldn't even think about doing it. So we filed for it, and in January of 2003, we became a nonprofit. The benefits there was I could now file for with foundations for grants. Corporations, they always needed to do funding for nonprofits who were certified with a CPA audit. So I had the CPA in line, I had the attorney do all the paperwork, so we were up and running. So the real benefit is if you need to get financing, that's a good thing to do if you don't have support in other places. So if anyone's thinking of starting something like this, and hopefully they are, it'll be a great thing if you get the 501c3 done. And there are some small fees, but I mean, the legal fees if I had to pay them, but I didn't.
Yeah.